I remember the sound of the sink dripping that morning. One drop, then another. It felt louder than my own breathing. I stood there with my hands pressed against the counter, watching the light crawl across the kitchen floor like it was searching for something I had already lost. My phone was face down. I did not want to see it. I already knew there would be no message from him. No good morning, no question asking if I slept well. Silence had become our language, and I was fluent in it. I used to believe love was something you fight for. I believed if you stayed kind, stayed patient, stayed soft, love would return the favor. I believed marriage was built by endurance, by forgiving first, by lowering your voice, by swallowing words before they became problems. That morning, I realized I had been begging for love in a place where love had learned how to ignore me. When he walked past me on his way out, his shoulder brushed mine. It was accidental, but he did not turn around, not even a pause. His keys made that familiar sharp sound, metal against metal, and then the door closed. The house exhaled. I stayed still, as if moving would confirm what I was afraid to admit, that I missed someone who was still alive, that I felt lonely in a marriage that was supposed to be my safest place. I met him when I was younger and braver in the wrong ways. I thought love meant choosing someone and never changing your mind. He loved my laughter then. He said it filled rooms. Over time, he stopped hearing it. Or maybe I stopped laughing the way he wanted. I am not sure when the shift happened. It never arrives loudly. It sneaks in between bills and busy days, between unwashed dishes and tired nights. I became the woman who noticed everything. His moods, his silences. The way his eyes stayed on his phone longer than they stayed on me. I learned how to read the temperature of the room the moment he walked in. If he was quiet, I became quieter. If he was distant, I tried harder. I cooked his favorite meals. I asked about his day even when he never asked about mine. I adjusted myself into smaller shapes so I would not be in the way. At night, I lay beside him and stared at the ceiling. The space between our bodies felt wider than the bed. Sometimes I wanted to scream just to feel something break. Instead, I whispered questions into the dark. Did I do something wrong? Am I asking for too much? Why does loving you feel like apologizing for existing? He would turn away, already asleep, or pretending to be. I never knew which hurt more. There was a day I cried in the bathroom with the shower running so he would not hear me. My reflection looked unfamiliar. My eyes were tired. My mouth was always halfway to a smile I no longer felt. I pressed my fingers into my cheeks, trying to remember the woman I used to be. The one who believed love did not have to be begged for. The one who believed being chosen once meant being chosen every day. I told myself this was normal, that marriage was not supposed to feel exciting, that passion fades, that silence is peace. I repeated those lies like prayers. But my body knew the truth before my mind did. My chest felt heavy all the time. My hands shook when I heard his car pull into the driveway. Not from joy, from fear of doing something wrong again. One evening I asked him if he was still happy. I tried to sound calm, casual, as if my heart was not standing on the edge of a cliff. He sighed before answering. That sigh felt like a verdict. He said he was tired. He said I worried too much. He said I made everything complicated. I nodded. I always nodded. I swallowed my feelings like they were poison meant only for me. That night, I sat alone at the kitchen table long after he went to bed. The clock kept ticking. Each second felt like it was asking me how much longer I planned to disappear inside this life. I realized something then. Love should not feel like a performance. I should not have to earn tenderness. I should not have to beg someone to see me. I thought about all the times I stayed quiet to keep the peace. All the times I said sorry when I was the one hurting. All the times I chose him over myself, hoping one day he would notice the sacrifice and love me more. But love does not grow from erasing yourself. It grows from being seen, and I had been invisible for a long time. I did not stop loving him that day, but something inside me shifted. A small, fragile strength woke up. It whispered that I deserved more than tolerance. More than half answers. More than a life spent waiting for affection to return. I looked around the kitchen, at the life I built, at the woman I became. And for the first time, I asked a different question. What would happen if I stopped begging for love and started listening to myself? The next morning, nothing looked different. The same kitchen, the same cups in the sink, the same silence sitting between us like an uninvited guest. But inside me, there was a tension I had never felt before. Not fear, not hope. Awareness. It was uncomfortable. Like wearing new shoes that had not softened yet. I watched myself move through the day, as if I were someone else. I noticed how quickly I apologized. How often I checked his face before speaking. How my voice changed when I asked for something I needed. When he spoke to me, it was practical. Short sentences. Requests instead of conversations. He asked where his shirt was. He reminded me about a bill. He did not ask how I was feeling. I answered the way I always did. Calm/pleasant. Easy to live with. I wondered when being easy became my main goal in life. I went out that afternoon to buy groceries. In the parking lot, I sat in the car longer than necessary. My hands rested on the steering wheel, and I felt something sharp rise in my chest. Anger, maybe or grief. I thought about the younger version of me who believed love would make her feel safe. I wanted to tell her that love can also teach you how to disappear if you let it. I wanted to tell her to protect herself sooner. Inside the store, I saw couples arguing softly in the aisles. I saw a woman laugh while her partner held the cart. I did not envy them. I felt distant from them, like they belonged to a world I used to live in. A world where affection was natural and not negotiated. I paid for my groceries and went home with a heaviness that would not lift. That evening, he came home late. He did not explain, I did not ask. We ate in silence, the sound of cutlery louder than our voices. I wanted to tell him I felt lonely. I wanted to say I missed him even when he was right in front of me. Instead, I asked if the food was okay. He nodded without looking up. Something inside me closed quietly. Later, I stood in front of the mirror again. I searched my own face like it might answer me back. I realized I had been measuring my worth by his attention for years. When he was kind, I felt valuable. When he was distant, I felt small. My self-esteem had been tied to his moods like a fragile balloon, rising and falling without control. I remembered a night from years ago when he held my hand and told me I was his safe place. The memory felt like it belonged to another lifetime. I wondered if people change or if they just stop pretending. I wondered if love fades or if it starves when one person keeps taking and the other keeps giving. The truth arrived slowly, not as a dramatic realization, but as a quiet understanding. I had been afraid of losing him, afraid of being alone, afraid of starting over. That fear kept me loyal to a version of love that no longer existed. It kept me hoping for crumbs and calling them meals. One night, I did not wait for him to come to bed. I turned off the light and lay there alone, feeling the weight of my own body. The loneliness felt different. It felt honest. I told myself that staying in a marriage where I felt unseen was also a kind of abandonment, one I was doing to myself. The next time he ignored me, I noticed it without reacting. My chest tightened, but I did not chase his attention. When he dismissed something I said, I did not laugh it off. I felt the discomfort and let it stay. It was like learning a new language, one where my feelings were not an inconvenience. He noticed the change before he understood it. He asked me one evening why I was quiet. The question startled me. I almost answered with a joke. Almost said nothing was wrong. The old reflex kicked in, ready to protect him from my truth. I stopped myself. I said I was tired, not physically, emotionally. The word hung between us. He frowned like he did not recognize me. He said everyone gets tired. He said I was overthinking again. I listened without defending myself. Without shrinking, without begging him to understand. That night, I cried, but not because he hurt me. I cried because I finally saw how much I had hurt myself by staying silent for so long. I cried for the years I spent trying to be chosen by someone who had already stopped choosing me. The tears felt like release instead of weakness. I began to ask myself questions I had avoided for years. What do I need? What makes me feel alive? Who am I when no one is watching? The answers did not come easily. They were buried under layers of compromise and habit. but they were there, waiting. I started taking small moments for myself, drinking my coffee slowly, walking without rushing, listening to music I loved instead of the background noise of our life. These were not acts of rebellion. They were acts of remembrance. I was remembering myself. The distance between us became clearer, not louder, just undeniable. He sensed it, but did not know how to reach it. Or maybe he did not want to. I realized then that love cannot survive on comfort alone. It needs effort, curiosity, care, and I was the only one still trying. For the first time, the idea of letting go did not feel like failure. It felt like honesty. Honesty, I was learning, is the first form of I stopped explaining myself after that, not because I did not have words, but because I was tired of translating my pain into something he could tolerate. I noticed how peaceful the house felt when I stayed in my own world. Not happy, just quieter. There is a difference. Quiet can heal. Silence can hurt. I was finally choosing the first. He started asking where I was going when I left the house alone. I said I needed air. That was the truth. The walls had learned too much about my sadness. I walked through familiar streets and felt unfamiliar in my own skin. It was like waking up from a long sleep and realizing your life had been happening without you. One afternoon, I sat on a bench and watched people pass by. Everyone seemed to belong somewhere. I wondered if I still belonged in my marriage, or if I was just occupying space out of habit. The question did not scare me anymore. It felt necessary, like cleaning a wound before it can heal. When I came home, he was irritated. He said I was distant. He said I was changing. His tone was not curious. It was threatened. I almost smiled at the irony. For years I had been begging him to notice me. Now that I was pulling away, he finally did. He asked if something was wrong with us. The word us felt heavy. I took a breath and felt my heartbeat in my ears. I told him the truth, slowly, carefully, without blaming. I said I felt lonely. I said I felt unseen. I said I had been trying to fix something that required both of us. My voice did not shake. That surprised me. He listened, but I could see the distance in his eyes. He defended himself. He said he worked hard. He said I expected too much. He said he was not good at emotional things. I nodded. I had memorized these lines. They used to break me. Now, they just informed me. I realized then that understanding someone does not mean accepting what hurts you. I could see his limitations clearly. And for the first time, I admitted that love alone does not erase neglect. Commitment does not excuse emotional absence. Marriage is not a promise to endure pain quietly. That night, I slept deeply, not peacefully, but honestly. I dreamed of doors opening, of standing in a room full of light and not apologizing for taking up space. When I woke up, my chest felt lighter, even though nothing around me had changed. I began to imagine a future that did not revolve around his moods. The thought felt dangerous and freeing at the same time. I imagined mornings without tension, conversations without fear. I imagined loving without shrinking. I did not know if that future included him. I only knew it had to include me. He tried to be kinder after that conversation. Small gestures, short-lived effort. It felt reactive, not intentional. Like someone watering a plant only after it has started to die. I appreciated it, but I did not cling to it. I was done surviving on temporary warmth. One evening he reached for my hand. I let him, but I noticed how unfamiliar it felt. Not wrong, just late. I looked at our hands and felt a sadness that did not come with panic. I knew then that I was no longer afraid of losing him. I was afraid of losing myself again. I had spent years begging for love, confusing persistence with devotion. But love that has to be begged for teaches you to doubt your worth. And I was done learning that lesson. I did not make any dramatic decisions. No packed bags, no slammed doors. Just a quiet promise to myself. I would not chase affection. I would not argue for basic care. I would not silence my needs to make someone else comfortable. For the first time, I felt aligned with myself, and that alignment was stronger than fear. The final shift did not come with an argument. It came on an ordinary evening, the kind that used to blur into the next. He was on the couch, scrolling on his phone. I was at the table, writing something down. Not a plan, not a goodbye. Just thoughts I had been carrying alone for too long. The room was calm, but the calm was no longer shared. It was separate, and that was the truth I could no longer avoid. He looked up and asked what I was doing. I said I was writing. He nodded and went back to his screen. That was it, no curiosity. No interest, no attempt to step into my world. And strangely, it did not hurt the way it used to. It clarified everything. I thought about all the times I had tried to pull him closer by giving more of myself. More patience, more understanding, more forgiveness. I saw clearly now that I had been pouring love into a place that could not hold it. Not because I was unlovable, but because he did not know how to receive it. I walked into the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. The woman sitting there felt familiar again. Not the desperate one, not the quiet one. Just me, tired, yes. Sad, yes, but awake. Fully awake, I understood then that staying was no longer an act of loyalty. It was an act of self-betrayal. And leaving, whether physically or emotionally, was not abandonment, it was self-preservation. Later that night, he asked if I was okay. I told him the truth without decoration. I said I could not keep living like this. I said I needed a love that did not require me to disappear. I said I had stopped begging for something that should be freely given. He was silent for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was low. He said he did not know when things went wrong. I said, neither did I. But I knew where they were now. And I knew what I could no longer accept. There were no promises made, no dramatic apologies. Just to people sitting in the reality they had avoided for years. And for once, I did not rush to fix the discomfort. I let it exist. That night, I slept alone again. But the loneliness was different. It did not feel like rejection. It felt like space to breathe. Space to feel, space to become. In the days that followed, I felt grief rise in waves. I mourned the marriage I thought I had, the future I imagined, the version of him I kept hoping would return. I let myself cry without hiding, without shame. Grief, I learned, is the price of honesty. But alongside the grief, something else grew, relief. I no longer checked my phone with anxiety. I no longer rehearsed conversations in my head. I no longer adjusted my tone to avoid conflict. My nervous system began to rest for the first time in years. I started speaking to myself with kindness. I reminded myself that wanting love does not make you weak. Staying too long where love is absent does not make you strong. Strength is knowing when to stop begging and start choosing yourself. I do not know exactly what the future holds. I do not pretend healing is fast or easy. Some nights still ache. Some memories still sting. But I trust myself now. And that trust is something no one can take from me. I learned that love should feel like safety, not survival. Like connection, not confusion. Like being seen, not tolerated. The day I stopped begging for love was not the day everything ended. It was the day everything true began.